Welcome to Middle Fingers Up, the show where we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher. I'm your host, Kieran McKay. Today, we have a special episode for you, perfectly timed for Canadian Thanksgiving. This episode is all about gratitude, love, and the joys of the journey. Because as we celebrate this season of thanks, I thought it'd be kind of cool, kind of great to bring on a special guest, my husband, Kerry. So Kerry's back today. And together, Kerry and I just got back from a road trip. We drove from Calgary to Houston. And I guess you can say it was an adventure that not only celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary, but also I felt resulted in us reflecting on the many things that we were both thankful for in our lives. So we thought we'd come together and put an episode together. So hi, how are you?
Well, hello. I'm very good. How are you?
I don't know. I usually say hi to my guests. I was a bit awkward in the beginning with you. Okay, so this episode, I thought we should just let everyone know what we were thinking about. This episode was inspired by the Luckenbach, whatever it's called, Luckenbach, Texas song by that country singer guy, Waylon Jennings. I don't know his name.
Exactly.
It's spelled Waylon.
If anybody thinks that it's incorrect, then just
okay. Well, anyways, the song you had looked it up before we actually started recording. Came out the year you were born, right?
Yes.
1977.
Yes.
It's 46 years old. So this song, I literally just heard it before we went on this road trip and I fell in love with it. And I feel like this song actually prepared me because I wasn't looking forward to this road trip. You and I were going to do our 15 wedding vow renewal actually in Paris. And we had this whole plan. And then something in the last year sort of made me kind of come to you and say, I feel like that's just me always wanting to be extra and do so much. Let's just we don't need to do anything. We're good. We can have our little celebration. So we decided to do a road trip to Texas. And, we can talk about how we ended up. That just kind of randomly happened. But that song, what I love so much about it is he sings about going back to the basics of love. And it reminded me of when I worked in leadership. Sometimes when the youth or the young people or the families that we were working with, or even in the teams we were working with, we were struggling or in certain crisis, we would sort of have this thing where we talk about going back to the basics, just getting back to the basics. And it's almost when you experience something, you're in crisis, you need to just go back to survival, right? Like sleep, eat, safety, that sort of thing. And so I just thought that was really cute, the basics of love. And, in that song, he talks all about keeping up with the Joneses and
four-car garage.
Yeah, we're still building on. It's oh my gosh, right? It's a really nice song. And so it sort of got us on this road trip and talking a little bit about us and our relationship. And I think it'd be really fun for us to talk about that. But before we do, should we do our middle fingers up segment?
Sure.
Okay. So let's do it. Let's go there. What would you like to put your middle fingers up to?
And every time I don't come prepared, but one, as we're sitting here, really bothers me. So I want to give my middle fingers up, both of them, to people who say that they're going to do something.
Yeah.
And not that they don't even do it.
Yeah.
But they don't even show up. Zero communication. So, hey, Bill, can you come and help me with X tomorrow? Oh, yeah. And then Bill doesn't text everything. Zero communication. It takes 5 seconds to text somebody.
Yeah. Are you talking about what happened?
I'm just talking about in general.
Yeah.
So I've found, though, that as we've gone along this journey in life, that the stronger your friendship circle becomes and the stronger your family circle becomes, that this becomes very rare.
Yeah.
Because you're talking to people that are in that circle, and even if they're, Venn diagrammed and they're attached to that circle, they're all fairly similar. And so when it does happen now, it's even more of a surprise.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you maybe shouldn't have let that person into the circle, I guess.
Okay, so what I think you're talking about is I recently had a guest that sort of bail, like went poof, like literally right before we were about to record. We had this whole conversation through Messenger and they literally don't show up. And then I kind of worry about them. A couple days later, I check in, like, listen, no pressure. You don't have to come on. Like this, I get it. Sometimes in the moment, it's a little nerve-wracking. It's not for everyone. Good luck. Hope you're okay. And they're like, I'm so sorry. Something happened, but I really want to come on. I really want to talk about this. I was really excited because we were talking about a really important topic. And then they did it again.
Yeah.
They literally no-showed me. So, that whole fool saying that Bush butchered, fool me once, fool me twice, that whole thing.
No. So what is it?
No, we don't need another one. I already butcher enough in my life. I don't need to be another one of those.
But somebody butchered it.
Yeah. Bush did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just
and J. Cole sampled it in his rap song. Anyways, so I hear you. I think, for me, I think the thing is like, I hope I'm not doing that. So it's just when that happens, I think it's just a good reminder of, okay, like where my life and to who am I doing that? And hopefully my people in my circle are letting me know if I'm not showing up when I said I would.
But again, I think that's where it comes into play is how strong your friend circle is or your family circle or your whoever's attached to that. I think as that grows and as that becomes stronger and you're surprised by it, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because that means it's not happening all the time.
Totally, yeah.
But
it's just weird when you're like literally having, like this person was literally having conversation with me. Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, confirming the email. Great, I'm sending it. Great. Okay, awesome. Just waiting. Yeah, about to log on. And then boom, they're gone. I'm like, what is happening? I had to go back and reread because I'm like, did I read this wrong? But no, it wasn't me.
Yeah, meanwhile, they got like hit by a bus or something.
No, I'm not going to put that kind of energy toward that because that's not fair.
Why is it always a bus that someone gets hit by?
Well, because
so we've switched that up in our organization.
Yeah.
That if I ever get hit by a bus, no one else is gonna know what I do.
Yeah.
So now we have to cross train or whatever it is.
Yeah. Oh God, I'm so worried.
So now we say, no. If I ever win the lottery,
oh, positive,
right? So I'm gonna I'm out.
Oh my gosh.
But someone probably should know what I do.
Okay, so do you want to do something that you're thankful for too, since we are doing a little
Canadian Thanksgiving?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, it's Columbus Day as well.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So
let's celebrate that one right now together.
I had a conversation about that with a friend in Texas the other day.
Oh my gosh.
So
anyways, do you want to do
Sure.
Okay, so what's something that you're thankful for?
I'm eternally grateful and thankful for the feeling you get when you get home after a vacation.
Ooh.
Vacations are fantastic. You go away, whatever you do.
Yeah.
And, they say maybe you shouldn't go. Why do you have to go on vacation to decompress? What kind of life do you have that you have to do that? Regardless.
Oh my God, who the fuck says that? Who's they that says, why do you go on vacation? Like what?
I could throw a couple people under the bus.
Jeez, Louise.
They're bigger names than I am.
Okay.
So regardless, you get home, and I always love the fact that I'm here when I get home from being wherever, especially if we get home from somewhere that doesn't have the best healthcare system or they have a lot of peanuts and nuts in their diet. So there's probably a reason.
And I almost died.
Yeah. So we have to go to a different hospital in Central, South America or wherever else.
Have we ever told that story?
I don't know.
Which one you should say.
Which, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's so many of my allergy deaths.
So yeah. So when you get home and you have the feeling of your home country ground under your feet and your bed, the first night you sleep in your bed after being away for 2 weeks or even a week, your sheets, your bed.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, have you always felt that when you've come back from a trip?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
So my first big trip was, I went to New Zealand.
Yeah.
And everyone, if they've listened to this show, there may be that story in there. So anyways, yeah, I remember writing down in a little journal all the things I missed. from home.
Interesting.
And then when I got home, I did those things.
What, do you remember what they were? Like some of them?
Yep. So eat a real steak.
Oh, interesting.
Like not a pounded out piece of beef. And of course, I'm like super poor when I'm over there.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I get back here, I'm sure it wasn't like still filet mignon, but it was better.
Yeah, yeah.
Eat a pizza with like tomato sauce on it as opposed to like a white sauce.
Oh, is that how they make
did a lot
pizza
of white sauces,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
You know, just have a slice of pepperoni.
Right.
Those two things, and they're both food related. So that has something to say,
that
right?
is, yeah. Huh.
Yeah, those two things for sure. There could have been some other things, but I did leave a friend behind there in New Zealand, and he still missed home so bad that I had to ship him cases of Clamato juice, which is like a very Canadian beverage. They make Caesars out of it, not the salad. And to ship him those because he missed that. So
interesting.
I think we all have those if we're away a little longer.
Yeah.
Those little like things of missing home. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah.
A long diatribe later.
No, that's good.
Thankful for being home.
That's good. Welcome home. Home's happy to have you too. Okay, my turn.
What are you thankful for?
First, I have to put my middle fingers up. I'm going to put my middle fingers up too. And I was actually going to use this with the person that bailed on me. So this actually is more fitting for our conversation because we're going to talk a little bit about our trip. But I'm going to put my middle fingers up to the experience that I was provided at fucking Border Patrol. Okay?
Oh. What happened?
So Kerry and I drop the kids off and we leave. And we leave 5 days before this trip. We were only supposed to do a 5-day trip with another couple. We're going to go to Houston, have a fun little time. We decide to drive his colleague's 2-seater sports car from Calgary to... Actually, Kerry decides this and thinks I'm going to love it. And I'm like, I do not want to go on a trip like this. Road trips are not for me. I don't like them. I hate them. They're not for me. It's like, let's just get there and then have the fun. So anyways, we drop the kids off early. Because my parents were already booked to be part of our original plan, we had to compensate 5 days of childcare. So shout out to my brother and my sister-in-law for taking on 3 of those days. Shout out to our friend Nev for taking on the other 3 or 2 or however many days left of those until my parents got here. And shout out to my mom and dad for helping us out. How awesome is that? They helped us out so we could do this little trip. Anyways, we get to Border Patrol and it's like shift change, so we have to wait, right? And then they ask for our passports, whatever. And the guy, of course, he can't even say my name. So my name's Crandeep, first of all. So I have to go by a fake name and have no reaction to that because Border Patrol is allowed to treat us however they want, right? Because somewhere along the line, someone decided that they have all the power in the world. So our Border Patrol guy was just so peachy. He was lovely. He, after calling me Crandeep like 10 times, reminded me that I didn't sign my passport.
It comes with instructions.
And then he says to me, it comes with instructions, not that hard to follow. You should adult better, Crandeep.
Yeah, but as he passed the passports to me, and I'm like, shut up. What did he say? What did he say? I'm like, nothing. Bye. And you drive along because you just don't have that conversation. Well, what the fuck did he say?
I wanted to know because, like, fuck him. And I get it. I know what you mean. I'm not stupid. I'm not going to get us, like, fucking fired by Border Patrol. But I'm just saying, fuck him. Fucking telling me to adult better.
Well, you didn't sign your passport.
2 hours of the following trip was silence.
If we want to preface this, the road trip story.
Yeah.
We didn't fight the whole way. But I also wasn't spoken to for 2 hours after that incident. So
I was so mad. So mad. So I also would like anyone that knows a Border Patrol officer or anyone that listens is one. I would love to interview one because I'm always curious about how this happens. Why? Whose misunderstanding is it? Why are we like this? Can we have a better relationship?
They're protecting the country. They're protecting the border.
Okay.
So they do baseline. Yeah. They do baseline questions like, what country do you live in? And then they ask you questions. Maybe they ask you, get you a little
10 more. Game. We get asked questions that are on the different list.
Anyway, they ask questions, and they're probably pertinent in some.
Anyways, Border Patrol, I was not happy with you. So, but one thing that I would like to say I'm thankful for, I am thankful for, do you know that we are coming up to episode 50? So I don't know where we're at right now when we're posting this one, but we are coming up to episode 50 really quick. And so I think it'd be really cool. I'm actually glad that you're sitting here. You and I can both thank everybody. We recently had the Bruvcast on, and I really liked how Raj and Mick said this. So it got me thinking. I often thank everybody. I hope I thank everybody enough for being guests on the show, as well as for everyone that takes time of their day to listen to our show. But I really like how they said it. They talked about just being so grateful that we only have so much time in a day, and we allocate those hours to priorities and loved ones. And so it means a lot for folks that choose to listen to our episode and have helped us get to episode 50. There's a lot of wonderful content out there, wonderful opportunities to grow and learn. And so the fact that people keep showing up and inviting more people to come, we are so grateful, and we'll keep doing this as long as you want to do this with us. So one thing, if we can ask from all of you, is please keep sending us feedback. You don't have to love all the episodes. You don't even have to like them, and you don't even have to listen to all of them. Just send us feedback about what you want, what you think you're hearing out there, what you think would be helpful, because that keeps us going. So that's what I'm thankful for, is our guests and all of our middle finger upstanders, because we're standing up, right? We're standing up for, our well-being. We're standing up for each other. We're making space for people of color. We're helping be inclusive. We're talking about self-awareness. So we're standing up to a lot of those things. I didn't start it. Someone else did. So.
Oh, okay.
But I like it. So thank you to everyone. And shall we talk a little bit about the last little bit in Luckenbach, Texas? So we went on a road trip. We did 6 days before another couple met us for a little vacation in Houston, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we get in a car. After the 2 hours, things got better, right? We had a little chat.
Yeah, I mean, it was...
You encouraged me to think about why I was giving so much anger to that situation. Yeah. And we had a lot of days ahead of us. We had 2 weeks ahead of us.
Yeah, I think the conversation started essentially that, why do we give people so much power to influence our emotions? They're our emotions. We own them.
Yeah.
They're under our guidance.
Right?
And yet we let other people poke their little spider fingers into our brains and change our emotions. Mm-hmm. They're ours. You do what you want with them.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, the problem was that it was a white man that already comes with all this power, and then he's at Border Patrol and has more power, and he can't get my name right. Won't ever get my name right. And there's all those things, like I get where I'm giving my anger, and I still am choosing to give my anger to all of that, knowing all that, but it's hard. It was hard. It's hard.
I guess I don't understand why you're so angry, because he was right.
Oh my God.
You didn't sign your passport.
Wow.
It does come with instructions.
Wow. Let's see if this one makes it past the edits. Well, that was a short-lived episode, right? 20 minutes in, and we're like, thanks for joining us.
But there are all...
I'm choosing to not give my anger to you right now.
There are things that we have to adult better. I'm sure we all have those little portions of our life. But to be told by an authority figure that, I understand.
Yeah. No, I know. I also was not going to obviously let that get to me for the whole trip.
So
but there's a lot of things in there that bothered me in that, right? Because it is sometimes it's not that one moment that we're saying it's a straw that breaks a camel's back. Essentially, there's a cluster of things leading up, and then we're not attuned to those things, and then we get angry. But what were you going to say?
I was going to tell you a story about a person of authority saying essentially the same thing. So went hunting, and you're never ever supposed to have I'm not sure if this is a worldwide thing, North American thing. I know 100% it's a Canadian thing. You're not supposed to, you can't have a loaded weapon in your vehicle. Meaning you can't have a chambered bullet in your gun as you sit there potentially watching for a deer to come out or whatever. You have to get out of your vehicle and load your gun. So anyway, my dad had just passed away. I have his gun. I went hunting with him, and the clip just kind of slides in and sits in the gun. Not actually like clicked in. So if I pick up the gun, the clip falls out. So it's not really loaded. Anyways, the conservation officer comes out because somebody apparently is shooting from a road somewhere, and he thinks it's us. And anyway, we have a chat. It's obviously not us. We're not even close to that road. And then he's like, yeah, can you step out of your vehicle? Yeah, fine. He grabs my gun. He's like, this is loaded. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, flip it over. And the clip falls out. He's like, no, sorry, it's loaded. That was a loaded weapon. He's like, I'm going to give you a fine. I'm like, okay, well, look, my dad has this. He hunted with this for like X amount of years. And this never happened. That's not how it works. He's like, well, that is how it works. And you have to understand that the first 18 years of your life, education's free. After that, you pay to learn.
Wow, what does that mean?
And he gave me a ticket. I was paying to learn. Thanks, bud. Thanks for telling me I was doing something wrong. Like, I get it if I was like, okay.
But are you saying that story is the same thing as me? My story?
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but that's fair. I mean, I agree with the guy. He was right.
Exactly. Well, and maybe he was.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? I'm not fighting that guy. I'm not fighting him physically, but I'm not gonna go to like court or whatever for the X amount of dollars fine it was, and say to the judge, well, and then tell him my whole story. And the judge will be like, was the clip in the gun? Yeah. Okay. Well, it was loaded, even though it wasn't clicked in. Right. So what's that definition? I don't know, but it's just not worth the time. It's not worth that energy to give. That was my point. You gave a lot of energy.
Yeah, well, it's only 2 hours. It could have been way longer, I guess. You can look at it that way. Glass half empty, glass half full, right? I look at it half full.
How about just change?
It's only 2 hours.
You know what a very wise man said to me once?
Oh, here we go. Are we just like telling wise man?
Just change the size of the glass.
Well, wise man once told me, change your face, so.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so part of why I wanted to have this conversation with you today, because as I told you about the song, and then you and I were on the trip in this tiny little car. We get over the 2 hours and get going, get to our first destination. Part of this whole conversation, as we talked about a few minutes ago, was inspired by the song and the basics of love. And do you remember like some of the things he said in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's essentially like, well, how I take it is to stop trying to keep up.
Yeah.
Stop trying to just break it down to the basics. I guess find happiness in the smaller things.
Yeah.
I guess I see it as it really resonates to me when he's like keeping up with Joneses and the 4-car garage. Like literally just yesterday, I'm having a conversation with somebody about lifestyle creep. So, the whole idea of lifestyle creep, the more money you make, the more money you spend.
Yeah.
Right? And then maybe get into a different friend circle, get into different groups of people that are spending money on X, Y, and Z, and you're trying to keep up. You're not even trying to keep up. It just becomes a thing. It's like it's a creep.
Right.
And how it's so dangerous. And part of this conversation was, remember when everything was $10? And then remember, then everything all of a sudden it was $100. I'm talking like to fix something or to whatever, and then all of a sudden it's 1,000.
Yeah.
And now it's $5,000, and now it's 10,000.
Right.
It just becomes this thing that's perpetuating, or it's just growing and growing, and we're doing it to ourselves.
Well, totally. I was talking to a friend the other day too about kids wanting name brand clothes, and our kids aren't really into it. They're still young, but preparing for that, because I think we also create that. And I think that's what happens is we're not doing it intentionally, but we get caught up in wanting to be caught up. And then even in the song, he talks about we're just so unhappy. Like, we're just cry all day because like we're under all this pressure. And when we left for that road trip in this little car, we had like small trunk, barely pack anything, which you and I don't have a problem with small suitcases. You've trained me well with that. And then staying in hotels, but even where we were eating and how we were eating, just driving by, and you're stopping where you can, and you go with whatever your options are. And I don't know, for me, it was just sort of letting go. Like by day 3, day 4 almost too, it was feeling less and less like we had. I actually was a little overwhelmed to even go on my phone. I hadn't been texting or talking to some of my friends. You know, you send Instagram beams all day long, so you communicate. And I hadn't even done that because it's just trying to get away from all of that for a bit was really, really nice to be in a car together and not have all these distractions. And I think that created, like, you know, Avril Lavigne's song Complicated, when it's, so today's all about songs. Like, I like you when you're driving in your car, I think she says.
Okay.
Yeah. And just the kind of conversations you have one-on-one. I think that's what she says in the song. And being together, I think if there's people out there listening that are in a relationship, and I know for us, being one-on-one, driving side by side that way and having to navigate together, rely on each other, I really felt like this little intimate connection. And again, that small space, like we're usually in this massive truck of yours. So to be in this little car and even to be in close proximity, it just created this intimacy, like of just being close to each other. It was really nice to have that. And just the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
Not with other friends, not with the kids, not with family. I think that was an initial piece of going back to the basics of just being together and being present. And then from there, you know, conversations and stuff started.
Yeah, no. So I think, to be clear, the song didn't inspire the trip.
No.
The song was
inspired this conversation.
Yes.
Because I felt like the song
it resonated.
Yes, well said. Yes. It's like, oh yeah, that's how I felt, where we're like, let's like leave all this stuff behind.
But the fact is, it's like this song is almost 50 years old, and they're just talking about the same shit we're doing now.
I know. We're not learning, right?
Maybe it's worse.
Yeah.
It's a good song.
Yeah. He says, let's go sell your diamond ring and something of his, and then go buy faded jeans and boots. And I was like, yeah.
Obviously, I don't have the lyrics here, but my favorite part is when Willie Nelson breaks in. I think he's only in the song for maybe one verse, but he's, oh my God, there's Willie.
Yeah. It's a good song. So for me, one of the things that I really appreciated that I feel like, to be honest, I forgot about was being that close proximity. I think even sometimes when you are sitting on the couch together, or you go to bed, or even if you are driving together or having supper together, we might be in close proximity, but there's so many things on our mind, or we're distracted by whatever we're doing in the moment for each other, you know, multitasking.
There may be something there with proximity.
100%.
Like all of our houses are getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 1,500 square feet. Now it's 3,000. Now it's 5,000. Whatever the square footage of houses are, whatever the average is now, absolutely bigger than it was. So we're not around each other as much. Mm-hmm. Everyone needs a king size, and now it's like California.
Except for Europeans, man. Europeans do it the best. Like, look at their flats and their spaces. You know what, I was thinking about this because when you literally just said now there's something maybe with proximity, I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about people like my sister and friends, other family members we know that have townhouses. I feel like townhouses are like the best way to like be a family together. It's lots of space, but it's not what you're saying, this spread out or what, and you're just kind of like forced to be together.
I'll be in the West Wing.
yeah, right. But I feel when you're in a car together, when you're in a small space together, in a house together, you learn all sorts of things about each other.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So we've been back for a bit, and you've told many people that's the best trip I've had. Or we've been together for 20 some years.
22, 23 maybe.
Yeah, we don't even know. That's how long it's
been.
But
this was our 15th wedding anniversary. I know that.
And that's one of the best trips. So why?
I have been telling people that. I've been saying that because before we left, I was like, oh, I don't know about this, because we were supposed to go to Paris. And that's Paris, France, not Paris, Texas. Which Paris? There's lots of Parises out there. And we decided to do this road trip and go to Texas. And we went to Colorado in between. Where else did we go?
Amarillo.
So
Dallas.
parts of Texas, right? And at first it's like, oh, we're going, like, supposed to go to Paris. Now we're going to go do this. I was not looking forward to this because, again, high society, be trying to be bougie and think something glam is going to make it better. But we did the complete opposite, and it was the best trip because it was you and I, and it felt like we were just, every day felt like a date.
Mm-hmm.
Every day was an adventure. Every day was also taking care of myself and just myself, which allowed me to be extra present in some ways, with you. Even like doing hygiene routine and things that we don't make time for ourselves for often because we're trying to make time for other things and other people and make a 24-hour day into a whatever 24 plus hour day, right? Get more out of it. So I think I just felt like we had so much time.
Mm-hmm.
Time to get up, we worked out, we ate, like everything didn't feel like it was a rush and we had to get 100 things done and meet all these deadlines and things like that. I know we've gone on other vacations that have obviously been vacation where it didn't feel like deadlines, but this one just felt, it was literally a basic vacation. It was so basic. And I think that's because it was basic and we didn't have distractions. We had fun. Like we didn't have all these crazy, we didn't have to get somewhere. Didn't feel the pressure that we have to go see something or go check out this restaurant. Like there was no pressure to go anywhere.
Or book this excursion or.
Yeah.
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 If we don't see this ruin or don't go to the top of that tower or if we don't do this, when we're here, we'll never see it. Why are we here? This is why we're here.
Figuring out as we were going. And I think it was, again, we were just being present. Like present time consciousness is a thing.
And we didn't know what city we were in half the time. Like, what city are we in?
That's because we were trying to figure out when I could smoke some marijuana and couldn't.
Which state is
legal? Which state.
So, yeah.
But the billboards tell you along the way, the 420 lawyer, huge billboards let you know you're entering Texas soon.
I figure you should probably throw it out the window at that point, but yeah.
No, you can't do that. You can't litter. That's illegal.
No, sorry. Scratch that one.
Yeah, we don't throw anything out the window. I put middle fingers up to that, actually. I don't really like that.
Fair.
Yeah, that's interesting. What about for you? When you hear that, would you say it was like a good vacation?
Absolutely. So I love road trips. I've shared that love with a couple of buddies of mine, and they'll just jump in their vehicles and just drive. Mostly though for a reason. So, this was 3,600 kilometers, 2,000 miles. You could probably do it in 3 days. You should be able to do it in 3 days. I've done that, you like challenge each other. How long could you go for? And then they drive. This didn't have any aspect of that. This was like, we have 6 days to do a 3-day trip.
Yeah.
So there's no rush.
Yeah.
There's no reason. There's no emergency.
Mm-hmm. Again, we didn't have a tour to get to. We didn't have somewhere to get to.
Yeah, we're like, oh, we got to get to this.
A wedding.
Right. I was going to say funeral, so thanks for being positive.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was none of that. There's none of that, when I was in my 20s, you just jump in and you didn't have the time. You didn't have the time.
Yeah.
So you needed to go as fast as possible, drive for 14 hours, taking caffeine pills, doing whatever you need to do, stay up, drinking coffee all day. And
you also didn't have the money.
So you could spend extra time with the family.
Right. And also.
And you didn't have the $180 or whatever.
For the hotel room.
The
and
$34
restaurant.
For the motel room.
Yeah. You eat at the gas station and.
Beef jerky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, beef jerky is way too expensive back in the day. Even.
It's still expensive.
Yeah.
So expensive. For your 1 pack of beef jerky, I can buy like 17 packs of sour Skittles.
Right.
Not that I would, because that's not healthy for you, but if I could, I would.
So yeah, I think that was a good part of it. I mean, like I said, I like road trips, and it was on our time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to cities we hadn't been to.
Mm-hmm.
And with that positive attitude, I think we met a lot of really good people as well, because you get what you give.
Mm-hmm.
We're out there, we're sitting at the bar instead of sitting at a table.
I thought that was really cool too, because so one of the things we're talking about, going back to the basics of life or love, is this proximity and being in close presence of each other. The other is this road trip where you're driving and you're having this time together, and you're saying when you go out and eat, it felt like when we would go out, it was like a date.
Mhm.
So yeah, you sit at the bar and you can have a conversation with the bartender or someone else. Usually people sitting at the bar are traveling. So you meet someone else sitting there and have a cool conversation. And
I think if you're somewhere for a day, then you sit at a bar.
yeah,
Because everybody's sitting at the bar is
social
usually by themselves.
or wanting to be social.
And they're for sure social.
Yeah.
They might not want to talk, but then you start talking to the bartender, then they perk up, they drop a couple lines into the conversation. It becomes this whole thing. And at the end of the night, the whole bar is talking like
The bartender hugged us at the end of the night.
Yeah.
That bartender started out with not wanting anything to do with us when we sat down. He wasn't rude, but he was just had that almost like that East Coast
Meh.
attitude that I love very much. However, it's very intimidating. And yet by the end of it, he was coming around the bar hugging us because we're a hoot to be around sometimes.
It's very interesting though, as well. Our whole trip, as soon as anyone we're talking to found out we were somewhere other than from there, they were super nice.
Yeah, because the further south you go, they talk about the Southern hospitality. And it's even part of their motto at the airport. You read it. Once they know you're from out of town, it's something like you're no longer out of town. You're one of us now.
So good for you, America. Everyone we met is
easy
awesome.
there. Take it easy.
Everyone was great.
Yes. So the other thing I wanted to ask you was, okay, so did you think about this? I don't know if you think about it in the same way I do, but coming back from vacation, having some of this reflection, even while we were on there, is it us taking a break from the kids or the kids taking a break from us?
Both.
Yeah?
I'm pretty sure one of them said, because they had 3 different sets of caretakers when we were gone.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody's better parent than you are.
Yeah, that felt really good to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's their sense of humor too, which is really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't know anybody with a sense of humor like that, so I'm not sure where they get that from, but it was good.
Yeah, because we're so serious at home. I know. I agree. You're right. I do think it is both. I think just to even start with, our kids are getting older and it's been easier to travel with them. So now we often take family trips. We like spending time together. And so we don't go away as much as when they were little and you need that break. And I think it was a good reminder that even though we all like spending a lot of time together, it's also okay to like spending time apart from each other too. And when the two of us were out together, there was something very different about, again, having self-responsibility and only self-responsibility and not having to be that mother goose or mother duck or mother hen or whatever they call them that have to keep looking for their, your children and make sure kids are okay and feed your kids and the things that we have to do or go see things with your kids and all that. Right. So I thought that kind of a break every now and then is so important. And when you living out here in Calgary, we go on a date or sometimes we'll get a night out. I don't feel like it's the same because you're still in your close environment. So you're still thinking about the things that bother you, got to get to work or got to go pick up this thing or do that thing because you're so close to your day-to-day stuff. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But when you're away in a different city or wherever you are on vacation, it's eventually a couple days you can let go better and to have that.
I mean, it's very hard for people, including us, to get away and do what we did.
Yeah.
Get away from your kids for a break.
Yeah.
Realize that in the beginning, it wasn't about you and the kids. It was about you as a couple.
Yeah.
And I think if it takes a couple days to do that and you don't have a couple days to do that, figure out how, go do it in a day. Go out somewhere that feels like an other place that you haven't been.
Yeah.
Maybe a different area of town or a different thing that you would do together.
Yeah, that's really well said. I think, what does it take to feel like a couple?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That dating funness.
I think, you have to remind yourselves that you started this journey not as parents.
Yeah.
Right? You're parents now, and you're probably good at it or you're shit at it, whatever. Like we all are. Every day is a little different, right? But
yeah. No, I think that's really well said. I think you're right about that in the sense of what does it take to go back to the basics? Where do we start off? How do we rekindle that or keep that going or whatnot? And it's these things happen where you have ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and I think that's most relationships. However, that there was a guy that was sitting at the bar one night that we met from Brazil, and he asked us what makes us stay together. How come we've stayed together? Was it? How come you guys have stayed together for 22 years?
Yeah. Like, I think he was asking the question because he was a single dude. It sounded like maybe loved and lost or lost and loved. Yeah. He asked us that question. I think he was searching for something.
Yeah.
But
I told him hotel sex.
That works.
That's my answer.
Yeah.
What was your answer?
Car sex.
Oh, yeah. He's like, you guys suck. Yeah.
So anyway, no, I don't know if that was our answer. I think it's like growing together or doing stuff together that you can grow with. But if I can just like dip back a little bit into, like you said, getting to the basics.
Yeah.
I'm thinking even if you don't have children and you're a couple or you're together and your job becomes that, or your dog or something else becomes this other thing that you're focused on that's taking you not necessarily apart from the person, but yes, allowing you to forget where you started. You need to break from that, I think.
Like what do you mean?
So we talk about talk about being a parent and how some people just become this parent. They're not a couple anymore. They're mom and dad. And you'll be like, oh, talk to mom about it. And then all of a sudden you're starting to call your wife mom all the time. And
not in sexy, like Shauna Paul, like.
Yeah, I don't know. That's anyways. Go to Freud for that one. But I think that sometimes your job can be that child.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Or your dog or something else, like, or your cat or whatever your pet is or something. It's not just a kid thing. It's not, we're not just parents. Well, I'm a, I don't know, doctor, or I'm a this, and you get sucked down this path and you forget about this relationship where it started. That even maybe allowed you to get to where you are.
Yeah.
Like you grew there together and all of a sudden you're taken off. And I think you need to break off and be like, okay, it's us time again.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say about like people that don't have children.
Yeah.
This isn't just about that. I think it's just anyone that's together and trying to keep their relationship strong, you have something. Yeah,
because I think part of what I hear you saying is that it's possible to get lost and distracted in day to day, and we can over time find ourselves separating from each other, and there's lots of space in between couples and in our relationships because we're all growing, and even as a couple we grow at different speeds. There might be something that I'm learning and bettering myself with, and maybe you're not there yet, or vice versa, right? So I hear what you're saying in terms of there's finding a way to remind ourselves, how do we get back to the beginning? How do we remind ourselves? And I to be honest, I know we were talking about it's not just about parenting, but that was something that sometimes we'd have to do when we would work with families as a whole. And parents would be so angry and hurt by their teenagers because teenagers can be nasty. And parents lost and forgot that little tiny baby that they held, or that child that they adopted, or, that nephew that they're raising or what. And so it's like remembering, like, what were our hopes for this child when we were holding them. And so it's almost like what were our hopes for each other when we started dating? Like, what did we really want to do? We wanted to have a fun time. We wanted to have a sense of humor. We wanted to laugh. And I felt like we laughed a lot on this trip, you and I.
Yeah, this could be a very different conversation.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, if somebody took a road trip for 6 days and it went sideways, went the other way.
I know, right?
Could have been really.
It could have. I mean,
really been bad.
we could. This time we were talking about how it went really well. We're not saying all the times are going to. Let's not put pressure on ourselves. But I do think that's a good point too. Is
so from now on,
trying
we're doing
to expect
6-day road trips every year
or less, 6 days or less. But I think that's also what I'm picking up is that expectation that something has to sustain or be perfect for so long. Like that's not true. We had a few fights on this trip too.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean?
Not on the road though.
No, not on them. Not when we were one-on-one. When we joined up with our friends.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Dynamics change, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm still mad about that.
Which part?
I don't know. Sure, there's something. But I also think that when we were, so that's what, 6 days, I don't know how many, probably 12 to anywhere between 6 and 12 hours a day in the car.
Yeah.
And then you get to the hotel and you go eat and you share a meal because the food is crazy portions. But also all of that together, but in those 12 to 6 hours or 6 to 12 hours in the car, I think is what we did, what music we listened to. You know, we bounced back and forth, what audiobooks we listened to. I think that really spurred conversation.
Oh my gosh. Can we talk about the book we started listening to?
I mean, you can bring it up. I think there's going to be another whole episode.
I'm going to do something about this because Kerry and I started reading White Tears, Brown Scars by Ruby Hamad. And it talks about how white feminism betrays women of color. And I would recommend anyone and everyone to read this. And I would also say that it's not necessarily like an easy read, but it's described as a life-affecting one. So there's lots of conversations that we learn in there about, oh my gosh, race and growing up with quiet survival, all sorts of things. And Kerry's right. I'm going to get into this in a couple of segments, but what I hear you saying is listening to a book like this, for anyone that's read it, you know what we're saying. For anyone that's about to read it, you'll get it. Because it can be so life-affecting and impacting and recognizing and learning things about ourselves that maybe we don't even realize we're doing, or we thought I would never be that way, or I would never do that. And then you're listening and learning and you're thinking, oh my goodness, it was amazing because we had so many pause moments, and pause as in pause the book, but also pause our conversations too, because sometimes it can be a lot.
So this is one book. You could be listening to this book or that book, or watching just a good TV show together, whatever it is. But when you're in this, so you watch a Netflix or a streaming show, and you're done and you go to bed. We're listening to this book, and we still have 5 more hours to drive, and it's becoming intense. Well, even if you pause it, you still have to converse about it.
Yeah.
Or think about it. Even if you pause the conversation, then you're still
like in the same space. Again, proximity, small space, or something about it, right?
So, yeah. So, I mean, whether it's this book or another book or whatever it was, or if you watch a movie maybe and you stream it or stream a TV show and it's impactful and you marinate in it with whoever you're watching with, that could be as impactful, I guess, too, but we were forced to.
Yeah.
So that might be something there.
Yeah.
The proximity episode brought to you by deodorant.
What? Why? Because we're close to each other, so we have to smell good?
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There's also, I think, the reliance when you're on a road trip. Driving into, I believe it was Dallas. Google, what's the population of Dallas? No, it's not too bad. And as I'm driving in, I'm like, there's no way. That's totally wrong. Like, okay, Google, what's the population of Greater Dallas? And it's like an explosion of population in comparison to the city I drive in every day. I'm like, oh shit, okay. So there's freeways, and this is Houston as well. Freeways, over top of freeways, 10 stories up in the air. There's a semi going across.
Remember that bridge we went on? It was like a roller coaster bridge.
Yeah, that was in Houston.
What the heck?
But you really need, so fine if you drive it every day. I get it, right? I know which exit I'm going to take. I know what lane I should be in. But the first time in any large city like that, you need a co-pilot. So
Right here.
right.
I co-piloted.
And to be honest, after I dropped you off at the airport and
Because I left before you.
and picked up my colleagues, as we were driving back to where we were staying,
Yeah.
I missed a turn. Or no, I took a turn incorrectly. Anyways, we ended up going into downtown.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh man, you're definitely, it was Sunny. I'm like, Sunny,
Yeah.
you're not my work wife. Because I wouldn't have made that turn. You would have helped me out. He's like, what?
Yeah.
Anyways, it was.
No, but that was the other thing. Because
So
normally.
and that's one thing. Like,
I think what I think a little bit more about that, or did you want to add to that?
to rely on somebody for navigation, to rely on somebody just in general over these 6 days in cities that you're not in or in situations you haven't been in. I think that also there's some closeness that will either rekindle closeness, does that make sense? Or expand the relationship potentially, positively, I guess.
Yeah, like I think it's small examples, and because we don't have daily, and I know I've said this, daily distractions. So we're just saying 6 days. We happen to be on a road trip, so there wasn't anything like crazy about this. But what it helped us do was literally see all our day-to-day distractions go away and see little examples in the day that add to those, as Amin and Brenda talked about in their episode, those positive like bank deposits, or recognizing things that, oh, maybe I should talk about this thing because we're in this car for 6 hours and it's bothering me, or because I've had time to think about something, I'd like to talk to you about it. I think relying on each other, even in that way of communication, because it's only you and I don't have all these other people that I can just go to if I need help. And I think sometimes when we have that, if we're blessed to be part of a big family or friends or work, or we're successful in all these other ways, we have all these things that we can rely on. So we don't need that from each other in the same way. And I think that can lead to, and it has, I know for us, taking each other for granted because I know you're going to be there and you're going to help me get there. But in this case, I also knew if I don't help you, then what's going to happen?
Right.
So it's kind of cool to be able to look at a little example, like helping navigate on Google Maps or whatever it was we were using. I have to get better at helping with music because I'm so bad at that. I don't like touching all that stuff. And then I'm not good at the technology part.
That's fine. But it's interesting that how resonant this song was the more we listened to this song, because obviously you're in the car forever. This Luckenbach Texas song. And that was one song that was like on the playlist that kept going around. But every day it meant something a little bit different.
Yeah. Right?
Because today was this, going back to the basics of this. Maybe yesterday was going back to the basics of this. Mm-hmm. And it was this journey of going back to the basics of different things daily. And just seeing that, how impactful that is to go back. Why did you go to school? Why did you go into this trade? Why did you go, why did you start these things? Why are you where you are? Because you started doing something because of some reason. And usually it was started because of some joy or some positiveness or something that you really were you loved, right? So if you really loved it and you're unhappy now, could you go back to the basics of that? Mm-hmm. So we went hunting.
Look at you being all therapist-y. That's really good, Kerry.
So this reminds me of a conversation we had today. Went hunting. So you're in proximity. You're in a vehicle. You're driving for, let's say we're together for 8 hours.
Okay.
In a vehicle. Yeah, you pop out, you walk, you do whatever, you drive to the next area. Have this conversation about, so a friend of a friend, his son is playing hockey, football, whatever sport it was.
Right.
And he's very, very good at it. To the point that he's one of the top players in one of the top leagues in his age.
Yeah.
So then he tells his father, I don't want to play this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the father's kind of like, well, shit, you're really good. Are you sure? He's like, no, I just don't enjoy it. So the child or the kid goes back to basics. He goes back to, well, what we would call here the beer league or like a lower league. Has to try out for this league. And he goes to one tryout, and there's like 5 tryouts. He goes to one tryout. They go to the roster to see what the next tryout day is.
Yeah.
And the kid's name isn't on the roster for where they're supposed to go. And so the dad calls, "Hey, coach, my son's not on the roster. When's the next tryout day?" And the coach is like, "Oh, he's on team number 1. Like, he doesn't have to come and try out anymore." But the kid is in this league now where he went back to basics. He went back to just the joy of the game as opposed to all the pressure.
Yeah.
And would this kid have made the national ABC league of whatever sport?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But guess what? He'll go to college, or he can go and get a scholarship because he's really good at it and he's actually enjoying it.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just thought about that.
Yeah, it's just like finding gratitude in things that light us up and make us happy. And Bhavin Badresa, who is part of Suche Art, I had interviewed him. He's from London. And I don't know if you remember in his episode, he talked about he went to a seminar and the person speaking had said, if you lose sight of like what you want or your joy, and I might be losing a bit of this, but he was reminded to go ask himself, what is it that you love doing when you were 8, 9, 10 years old? Like, what brought you joy as a child? And it just, you talking about that story sort of reminded me of that a bit, of going back to when we lose sight of that, as you were saying, how do you go back and find that again? And yeah, it's a great question to ask yourself.
All this from a road trip and a song.
Well, yeah, again, just when we present time consciousness. My good friend Mina Nat taught me that when I was trying to get back in shape after having Xander, and while working out, being present in the moment, because often we are experiencing a little bit of pain, it's stressful, we tend to go somewhere else. Like, what am I going to do later while I'm doing these sit-ups? What do I have to go do? My mind wanders. But present time consciousness is being here and now and visualizing those, let's say, sit-ups and thinking about what those sit-ups, focusing on the abs and where do I want to focus. And I think I brought present time consciousness up earlier when you and I started talking. I feel like that was like sort of an example of the trip, which was taking away all those distractions and really focusing on being together. And I think those, to recap, I think what were the ones that we talked about? We talked about proximity. We talked about a break from the kids and kids having a break from us, but in general, just a break from. For us, it was kids. For others, it might be a break from the things that maybe identify us or take over us, or that we put before we put our own selves.
Yeah, or a relationship.
Right. And then reliance, we talked about that. I think a big part of why I wanted to have this conversation with you today was because I remembered on the trip that I forgot these few things that have been taken for granted, or I feel we lose sight of day to day. So I rely on you, but that, again, take for granted because it's a given.
Right.
I am in close proximity of you. However, it's not felt in the same way. It's not shared in the same way because you're distracted. I'm distracted. I'm sitting there, but maybe my mind's somewhere else. Like we have all these sorts of things that take over our mind, or we allow to take over our mind. We give to others before we give to ourselves, let alone our partner that we're with, right?
Right.
And taking this break, like I wanted to put all of that together, in particular with Canadian Thanksgiving, because in the last year and a half, I feel like a theme for me has been finding that joy, and along the way, finding gratitude with my relationships, with my time. And time is a big thing that I feel I gave away for so many years. And so going on this road trip with you was very different than so many of the other trips we've been on in the last year and a half, because we didn't, again, have big plans. We were just, our plan was to be together. We woke up together, we went to bed together, and we did things in between together.
How could we do this without going on a road trip?
That's a great question. I've been wondering that too.
How can one do this with whatever relationship that they want to, I guess, cultivate daily or weekly or monthly. What can you do? Because I'm like, we can't go on a 6-day road trip.
Yeah, and I think
every time things are a little crappy.
No, and I think we're doing it. I think this is it. I think I'm very grateful that I have the ability in my life to stop and reflect. Like, I'm really grateful that I can stop and look back and think, what were the highlights of this? We even talked about that at the end of the trip with our friends. Like, what are the top 5 highlights of our trip?
Yeah.
The things that stood out to
We needed to invite Cam for a top 5.
We should have had Cam there, right? We even did affirmations. It was just a lot of appreciation. And I think even when our friends joined us with their energy and just really good conversations and a lot of uplifting. We worked out together, all of us too. It was spending time.
I guess what I'm thinking is, what can you do to recreate a 6-day road trip in a day? Or what can you do to recreate what maybe we positively experienced in a week?
Yeah, I think
not necessarily going to do a road trip, but I guess, how do you become self-aware?
Yeah,
you have to become self-aware. Like, I remember that somebody, when I was in college, they had an elastic band around their wrist, and every time they had maybe a negative thought or something like that, they'd snap it. So obviously that's for whatever reason that was, but how do you snap that elastic band and get yourself out of your head, out of your own ass, and figure out, we need to cultivate a little bit here.
Yeah, I think because you asked the question, how do you have these things without going on a road trip, right? Like, how to go away, right?
Thing was,
and I think even though it was a road trip that helped me remember some of these things, I think it's the taking time out of our day for ourselves as individuals. For example, I know it's so, I'm going to use the word basic, but that self-hygiene routine at nighttime to go.
What do you mean by that? You said that before.
I know. So
it sounds like you don't shower. But
no,
on the
okay,
trip,
you're right. I'm talking clinical. So you're right. So at night when I get to go to the bathroom for 7-9 minutes and do my 17-step makeup removal or face bedtime routine, like I call that my hygiene, face hygiene, like washing my face and putting all my beauty things on my face. Doing things like that is very mindful. And and when I have time for myself to do things like that, it's adding to my bucket, right? And so when you ask the question, how do you do this without going road trip? I think it's finding time and making time, whether it's putting in my calendar, but putting in as a routine, some time in the day to ask myself what I'm appreciative of or grateful for, and reminding myself, especially when I feel like I have nothing to be grateful for. And it can feel like that. It can feel like that for a lot of people. And just waking up in the morning the other day, we said, what are you grateful for? And you're like, oh, I'm grateful for these sheets. And I think it was the day after you came back from the trip. It's so funny.
Because it's like getting cold here. So A, it was hot as balls in Houston.
Yeah.
B, get back to Canada. It's not.
Yeah.
And C, you had put on the flannel sheets.
Because I was expecting it to be cold by now.
Yeah, you put on these sheets and it feels like, you're being hugged by a Yeti or something.
Yeah. So I think the reminder for me was not losing sight of taking time out of the day to just ask myself, what am I grateful for? What do I appreciate? Who do I need to tell that I appreciate? What do I need to let go? Just things like that, so that we can then be able to be present for each other. And, when you do walk by and give me a hug. And I think that's the other thing, is recognizing maybe these things aren't important to you, but they definitely, I realize, were important things that stood out. Like, proximity is important to me. Reliance, understanding what that means. That definition can mean so many different things for people, right? Like, so what does reliance mean to you and I?
Okay.
So you even talked about that in your middle fingers up at the beginning, which was people not showing up when they say they're going to.
Yeah.
Right? What about for you, if you were to answer that? So for me, it's building that self-awareness and continuing to work on that so I don't lose sight of the things that I'm appreciative of, and recognizing that these things are important to me. What about for you, so you don't have to take that 6-day trip?
I think for me, it maybe started about 5 years ago in meditation, where I never gave myself time, and then I started giving myself time. I think we're saying the same thing, is that you need to give yourself time to be able to give others time. You have to go on the date with yourself before you can go on a date with your wife. There's conversations now about going on dates with yourself. Go to a movie by yourself. Go to, the art display by yourself. Go on these things by yourself. Go to a park bench and read a book by yourself. Just get into your zone, and it'll allow you to be a bit better person for the people around you. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's just like self-care to care for others.
Well, I think you make a good point, and it reminds me as well as when Ashley was on talking about her ADHD, and a lot of people she talks about, including herself, don't know what they want. So grown-ups like you and I don't all know what I want, what makes me happy, what is it that helps me find joy, what am I grateful for, because a lot of people are so used to pleasing and doing everything for everyone else before themselves.
Yeah.
Or I'll know what I want when you tell me what you want. What are you going to order at the restaurant? I'll order what I want.
I do that all the time.
Right. So you're I'm sure then you relate to that. So I think when we don't know all these things, it's very hard to find time or commit to finding time for ourselves. So I think you make a really good point about challenging ourselves. Maybe that's a call to action for today, is writing down or talking to yourself, recording it, whatever it is, about what is it that I want so that I can then be better.
Well, there's a lot of layers there, right?
Yeah. Like, how do I use it in a good way? What was it like? Taking care of myself so I can take care of
self-care to care for others.
Yeah. So I think maybe a couple more things and we can start wrapping up. I know you wanted to add something. We were talking earlier about the road trip.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to this, and I know we've said it a couple times. It bothers me that we're talking about this 6-day road trip, that we had this, not necessarily epiphany, but I would say maybe reconnection or strengthened connection. I think we're definitely grateful that we're able to do this and to take this time and, have family to take care of the kids. That we're all extremely grateful for all of that. But that's not necessarily our life ever or all the time. It was this time. And so that's why I guess I'm getting into that zone of like, okay, well, let's be grateful that we were able to do that. But what if you can't do that?
Yeah.
And that's where I want to make sure that I think that we do this regardless. I just think this was like a big chunk of it all at once.
Yeah, exactly. And, like just to again sum up, today's about being grateful and talking about a journey, and we just happen to come back from a journey. So it's also a bit of a metaphor, but I appreciate what you're saying is this is an example of something we got to do to recognize or be reminded, because I don't think we never do these things for each other. I think we sometimes take these things for granted. And for us, yeah, you're right. A road trip happened to remind us of, hey, find space to be close together. And when you are together, be present with each other. Don't be on your phones or lost in a thought.
So can I just say something?
Yeah.
It's reminding me of right now, and I just heard of this, and I think it's maybe quite an old scenario that people have brought up. It's like red car scenario or the red car theory. Like, how many red cars did you see coming to work today? And most people, I don't know. Okay, well, I'm going to pay you $100 to tell me how many red cars you see tomorrow. Well, guess what? You probably saw 5 red cars.
Yeah.
But the idea is that once you put thought towards something, you will get more of it.
Yeah.
So we also had an open mind of allowing a song to come in to relate and relay what we were thinking. I think you have to have that open mind that pulls these things in and that you recognize and you put together.
Yeah.
Because if you're closed-minded and you're not thinking that there's opportunity of happiness or coincidence to come in, and potentially steer your life. I've seen so many aspects of this happen where we're talking about this song that elevated this trip for us. And in the elevation of the trip, we're having a conversation about it now, hoping that somebody gets something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I'm saying is if you focus on something, that's what you'll get.
Yeah, like if I want to think positive about this trip, it was positive. If I want to think of all the crappy things, like all the yucky, dirty bathrooms along the way, or the times I didn't feel safe without you going into the gas station and those things.
Not adulting.
Not adulting, according to Border Patrol. Then the trip would have sucked. So I get to decide how I want it to go. And I think sometimes that's hard for people to acknowledge that we actually have that kind of power within ourselves because we're used to giving it to whatever's happening out there. So I do want to reiterate what you said, though. Like this conversation, like you asked me earlier too, why do you want to have this conversation? And will people get something out of it? And like you said, we hope you do. But a lot about today was talking about the things that I felt we were grateful for. And it's the Thanksgiving theme. And as I mentioned, we're the journey we just got back from, and just, again, recognizing that it's okay to forget things along the way in relationships, whether we're parenting, whether we're at work, whether we're with our kids, with our husband, wife, whoever it may be. I just think for me, it was a good reminder, an aha moment, that there are things that maybe I'm taking for granted in our relationship that I could be doing differently, as well as Nev said in one of the episodes. But what was it that I love when she said, she's like, how can I do this differently? Because when I'm not getting the same thing. So also recognizing some of the conversations you and I were having by listening to White Tears, Brown Scars, we were having some really good, thoughtful conversations that made me feel that proximity was even closer because you got things like why I didn't feel comfortable going into some of those stores or things like that. That's one tiny little example of a lot of other things. So I think my hope, like you said, is that, we'll take something from this. And if anything, then it's a reminder of asking ourselves, what are we grateful for? I think that's a call to action. Is if you're listening today, thank you very much. Take a minute for yourself and thank yourself, as well as ask yourself, what or who are you grateful for? And maybe share that with others.
Yeah, I agree.
So for everyone listening, we say these conversations are door openers. Please, please, please send us feedback. Maybe you want to know more about this conversation. Maybe you want to know more about other topics we've talked about. Again, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for listening, being part of this, helping us grow, helping us host better, edit better, encouraging us to put out content. Thank you so much.
Thank you.